Have you ever met someone who appears mature on the outside, polished, responsible, seemingly put together, but something about them feels off? They may handle their daily responsibilities, hold down a job, or even raise a family. Yet beneath that adult exterior hides the emotional reflexes of a wounded child. They crumble under criticism, demand constant praise, or lash out when things don't go their way. This isn't about age or life experience. It's about something far deeper, emotional maturity. And the unsettling truth? Many people never fully develop it. Emotional immaturity often wears a mask, charm, confidence, even charisma. But the cracks begin to show when real-life challenges appear. Today, we peel back that mask, not to judge, but to understand. We'll explore the 7 hidden signs that reveal when an adult has emotionally stagnated, signs that quietly sabotage relationships, disrupt careers, and block true self-growth. Some of these patterns may seem familiar, some may even reflect parts of yourself. But that's the point. Awareness is the first step toward evolution. So stay with me as we expose the silent signals of emotional immaturity and why recognizing them might just unlock the path to emotional strength, resilience, and genuine connection. Some people hear every word you say, but never truly listen, and that silence is louder than any reply. Low empathy and self-centered listening are among the clearest indicators of emotional immaturity in adults. It's not just about interrupting or talking too much. It's about a deep inability to feel with someone else. Emotionally immature individuals often respond to vulnerability with dismissal or discomfort. When you express pain, they downplay it. When you open up, they shift the focus to themselves. To them, conversations aren't opportunities for connection. They're stages to perform on. This behavior reveals an internal block, a resistance to stepping outside of their own emotional bubble. Empathy requires emotional strength, the willingness to hold space for someone else without judgment, without needing to fix or compare. But the self-centered listener feels threatened by other people's emotions, so they hijack the dialogue, turning every story into their own. This isn't always intentional. Sometimes it's a learned response from years of emotional neglect or avoidance. But left unchecked, it creates emotional distance and misunderstanding in relationships. Partners feel unseen, friends feel drained, and genuine connection becomes nearly impossible. True maturity shows in how we listen, not just with our ears, but with our presence. The ability to sit in silence, nod with understanding, and simply validate another person's feelings is one of the greatest forms of human respect. Recognizing this behavior, especially in ourselves, isn't a flaw. It's an opening, an invitation to grow into someone who doesn't just hear, but understands. And in that understanding, trust is built, wounds begin to heal, and the door to real connection slowly opens. Praise feels like oxygen to them. Without it, they suffocate in self-doubt. Some people walk into a room not looking to connect, but to be seen, admired, validated. Their entire self-worth is built like a house of cards, trembling with every passing opinion. This is the emotional trap of being obsessed with approval. It's a silent struggle masked by smiles, exaggerated gratitude, or even forced humility. These individuals constantly seek praise, at work, in relationships, online, desperately feeding on likes, compliments, and external validation to feel like they matter. The problem? The moment that approval fades, even for a second, they begin to unravel. A simple silence is taken as rejection. Constructive criticism is heard as a personal attack. They start overthinking every word, every gesture, wondering if they've lost their worth. This dependency on applause turns their emotional stability into a fragile mirror, easily shattered. In relationships, this obsession often creates exhaustion for both partners. One becomes the performer, the other the audience. On social media, they live by the numbers, likes, comments, views, treating every metric as a measure of self-worth. But no amount of external praise can fill the void that only inner confidence can satisfy. True emotional maturity is realizing that self-worth doesn't come from applause, it comes from within. It's built in silence when no one is watching, and it stands firm even when others don't notice. The mature individual doesn't chase validation. They embody value. And the moment we stop needing constant approval is the moment we start becoming emotionally free. Some people would rather ruin a relationship than say three simple words. I was wrong. That's the power of a fragile ego. Quiet, invisible, but destructive. When someone can't handle being wrong, it's not just stubbornness. It's fear. The fear of looking weak. The fear of not being in control. The fear that admitting fault somehow makes them less worthy. So instead, they lash out, twist the truth, or play the victim. In emotionally immature adults, this behavior surfaces in subtle yet damaging ways. During disagreements, they don't just debate ideas, they defend their entire identity. A simple correction feels like an attack. A different opinion feels like betrayal. They'll double down, shift blame, or even insult others just to protect their carefully crafted self-image. But here's the truth. Emotionally strong people don't crumble under the weight of being wrong. They grow from it. They know that being wrong is not a character flaw. It's part of being human. They understand that growth only happens when you're willing to look at your reflection honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. In contrast, those trapped in emotional immaturity keep circling the same arguments, burning bridges and losing respect, all to protect an illusion of infallibility. To mature emotionally is to trade defensiveness for curiosity, to embrace the words, I don't know, or I made a mistake, not as defeats, but as doorways to growth. Because owning your flaws doesn't make you smaller. It makes you real. And in a world full of people pretending to be perfect, being real is the greatest strength of all. Would you like the next heading summarized in the same tone and style? Some people walk into every room like the world owes them applause, yet they've never earned the silence. This is the hallmark of an emotionally immature adult, a deep-rooted sense of entitlement. They believe their needs should be everyone else's priority. Their desires, demands, and expectations aren't just preferences, they're non-negotiables. Whether in a relationship, workplace, or family setting, they expect others to adjust, cater, and comply without question. And when life doesn't bow to their will, they explode. Anger, frustration, silent treatment, or guilt tripping, anything to shift blame and regain control. This behavior often stems from childhood environments where limits were rarely enforced. They may have been overindulged, praised without effort, or shielded from consequences. But what begins as childhood privilege can mutate into adult dysfunction. Over time, this entitlement poisons relationships. Colleagues grow resentful, partners feel drained, friends slowly disappear. The entitled person sees themselves as the center of the universe, and everyone else as supporting characters. They confuse kindness with obligation, help with servitude. They mistake being loved for being owed. But emotional growth begins where entitlement ends. Maturity means recognizing that no one exists to fulfill your expectations, that love, respect, and support are gifts, never guarantees. It's understanding that everyone carries their own burdens, and the world isn't designed to orbit around your needs. When a person releases their grip on entitlement, they open their hands to gratitude, and with gratitude comes humility, harmony, and healing. True maturity isn't loud or demanding. It's quiet strength. It's knowing the world doesn't owe you anything and still choosing to give your best to it anyway. Every failure becomes someone else's fault in their world because the mirror is far too heavy for them to hold. There's a specific kind of person who always walks away spotless, no matter how messy the outcome. Projects fall apart, their coworkers didn't pull their weight, a relationship ends in chaos, their partner was too sensitive. Life doesn't go as planned, the universe is simply out to get them. This pattern isn't coincidence. It's a clear sign of emotional immaturity, the refusal to own one's mistakes. Emotionally immature adults struggle with accountability like it's a threat to their identity. Admitting fault feels dangerous, even humiliating, so they deflect, deny, or shift blame onto others. It's easier to play the victim than to confront the discomfort of being wrong. They might even twist reality, gaslight others, or create drama just to protect their fragile sense of self. But here's the truth. Mistakes are not the enemy. They're teachers, and owning them isn't weakness. It's strength. Accountability is where emotional maturity begins. It's the moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking inward. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's also liberating. Those who accept their flaws become more trusted, more grounded, and more capable of growth. They break cycles instead of repeating them. In contrast, those who cling to blame stay stuck, trapped in a loop where progress is impossible because they have handed away the power to change. Growth starts with three simple words. I was wrong. And yet for some, those are the hardest words to say. Emotional maturity isn't about never feeling anger, fear, or frustration. It's about knowing how to hold space for those emotions without letting them control your life. An emotionally immature adult, however, doesn't yet have this skill. Their reactions are raw, immediate, and unfiltered. They lash out when upset, retreat when criticized, and collapse under pressure like a house of cards in a storm. These individuals haven't learned to respond. They react. And that single difference can make or break every relationship they touch. Their emotions sit just beneath the skin, waiting for the slightest scratch to erupt. You'll see it in shouting matches over small disagreements, silent treatments that last for days, or dramatic exits the moment they're asked to face discomfort. Emotional reactivity isn't about having emotions, it's about being ruled by them. And when someone constantly needs others to tread lightly around their moods, it's a sign that they haven't built the inner architecture to process emotion in a healthy way. Real growth begins with reflection, not reaction. Mature individuals pause, breathe, and ask, what am I feeling? Why? And what's the most constructive path forward? This pause isn't weakness, it's power, because in that space they reclaim control. They choose how to respond. Emotional control isn't something you're born with, it's something you train for. Like a muscle, like discipline, like wisdom earned through fire. Those who commit to mastering it rise above emotional chaos and create lives filled with balance, resilience, and peace. Because the strongest people aren't those who never feel, they're the ones who know exactly what to do with what they feel. Toxic relationship patterns aren't always loud. Sometimes they hide in the softest words, the tightest hugs, and the kindest smiles. But beneath the surface, emotional immaturity poisons connection. An emotionally immature adult often swings between two extremes. Either they cling too tightly, suffocating their partner with neediness, or they push people away with cold detachment and emotional walls. In both cases, the message is the same. I don't trust love to last unless I control it or avoid it. This instability isn't about the other person. It's a reflection of inner chaos. Insecure attachment styles, jealousy masked as caring, or emotional withdrawal disguised as needing space, all point to deeper unresolved wounds. When someone struggles with boundaries, they may see every healthy limit as rejection. They misread silence as abandonment and mistakes as betrayal. The result? Constant drama, broken trust, and relationships that feel more like emotional battlegrounds than places of peace. True connection requires more than affection. It demands emotional responsibility. You need to know where you end and the other person begins. Without self-awareness and empathy, even the most passionate love can turn into a cycle of pain. Recognizing these patterns isn't just about pointing fingers, it's about healing. Because behind every toxic reaction is an unmet need: attention, security, validation. And behind every failed connection is a chance to evolve. Emotional maturity means learning to love without losing yourself and giving others the same freedom. Until then, relationships will remain unstable, fueled not by connection, but by fear in disguise. Emotional immaturity doesn't wear a label. It doesn't announce itself with warnings. It hides in everyday conversations, in how we react to conflict, in how we treat those we love, and more importantly, how we treat ourselves. And the truth is, we all carry fragments of it. Some inherited, some learned, some born from pain we never knew how to process. But recognizing it is a breakthrough, because the moment you see it, not just in others, but in yourself, you're no longer trapped by it. You begin to heal. You begin to choose differently, to pause before reacting, to listen before responding, to reflect before blaming. And in doing so, you begin to rewrite your story. Emotional maturity isn't about perfection. It's about progression. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about mastering your responses. It's about building the strength to hold space for both your emotions and someone else's, without collapsing under the weight of either. So if any part of this resonated with you, know this: you're not